I generated 50 sales calls in 30 days for one of my clients, all through cold email, powered by automation and AI. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. I've built dozens of these campaigns for my agency and clients, sending millions of emails every month. And results like this never come from luck. They come from pairing the right offer with clean data and smart automation that does the heavy lifting for you. So I'll break down the full system step by step, from the strategy behind the offer to scraping leads straight from Google Maps, enriching them with AI, and finally the email sequence that turned them into booked calls. You'll see the logic behind every process, and by the end you'll have the exact blueprint that produced 50 booked calls in just 30 days. Before we get into the workflow, let me give you a bit of context, because this entire campaign only worked for one reason: the offer made sense for cold outreach. The client was a marketing agency selling Google Ads and SEO to local businesses, and normally that market is quite brutal for outbound. You're competing with 100 other agencies pitching the same thing: better ads, better rankings, better results. None of that cuts through. The only reason this campaign pulled 50 calls in a month is because the offer wasn't built around marketing, it was built around money. When I say the offer made sense for cold outreach, here's what I mean. Cold email is not a conversion channel, it's an attention channel. You're not selling trust yet, you're buying 5 seconds of focus, and in those 5 seconds the message has to answer one question in the prospect's mind: why should I care right now? And the only thing that answers that instantly is a front-end demand generation offer. A front-end offer creates new money. It promises a direct, measurable outcome: more clients, more leads, more revenue. Something that makes a stranger stop scrolling and think, if that's real, it's worth hearing about. Compare that to what most agencies send cold, like we'll optimize your campaigns, we'll improve your ROI, we'll audit your funnel. That's all back-end positioning, valuable once you've built trust, but invisible to someone who's never met you. Cold traffic doesn't buy improvement, it buys opportunity. And that is why this offer worked. It was framed around helping local businesses win customers, not run better ads. It solved a problem they actually feel every day: competitors eating their market share and their phones going quiet. The message promised to reverse that fast without hiring an in-house team. That's a money lever. It triggers an instinctive response because it's tied to revenue, not process. And once you understand that, the rest of the system becomes simple. Automation doesn't make bad offers work, it multiplies the reach of good ones. When the core message is already hitting a universal desire like growth, scaling it through cold email and AI turns into something predictable instead of lucky. So with the offer locked in, front-end demand gen tied directly to revenue, the only thing left was getting in front of the right people, because an offer that powerful doesn't matter if it never reaches the businesses it was built for. That is what this next part solves. The question became simple: where do you actually find those businesses, and how do you pull them into your system automatically? Because even the best message dies in the wrong inbox, and sourcing the right data is what turns a good offer into a repeatable system. For this campaign, the ICP was local businesses, HVAC, plumbers, roofers, anyone with a public-facing website and a physical service area, the kind of companies where visibility literally decides survival. But here's the thing: lead sourcing isn't a data problem, it's a market translation problem. You have to find the digital reflection of where your audience actually exists. Every offer out there lives inside its own ecosystem. If you're targeting SaaS founders, that ecosystem is LinkedIn or Crunchbase. If you're selling to e-com brands, it's Shopify or Amazon listings. And if your offer helps local businesses win customers, that ecosystem is Google Maps. You're not scraping hypothetical data, you're pulling directly from how these businesses already exist online. That matters because you're targeting companies that depend on being found by customers in their area. Apollo can't give you that level of specificity. You can filter by marketing agency or dentist, but you'll still get remote teams, irrelevant industries, or outdated entries. Google Maps gives you a direct list of businesses with an active footprint, people who are reachable, verifiable, and actually doing business right now. Here's the catch: Google Maps is great for discovery, not really for outreach. It only gives you names, websites, and locations. No emails, no decision makers, nothing you can use to start a real conversation. So scraping maps by itself doesn't give you leads, it gives you raw coordinates. That is the gap this workflow closes. It takes those business listings, scrapes them automatically, and runs enrichment on top, finding the right people behind the business and extracting key data points. So this lead enrichment workflow, or this lead scraping workflow, actually exists out of two parts. The first part is basically scraping Google Maps. So what I've done is I've set up a fake search for roof surfing businesses in Dallas, Texas. As you can see, it comes up with a bunch of listings. And if I scroll down, you can see it starts to generate a bunch more. There we go. All those red dots are a roofing business in Dallas. And we want to scrape all of them because they're all potential clients for us. So what I do once I've verified that the search actually works is I duplicate that search in my CRM. I use Airtable as my CRM. You can use whatever as long as you can send over webhooks with information. So what I did was location is Dallas, USA. Search term was roofer and language is English, obviously. And I just start the lead generation, which then kicked off the following workflow. The following workflow uses an Apify scraper to scrape all of the businesses we just found for searching for roofers on Google Maps, and it pulls them all into our workflow. The only thing this workflow filters for is for businesses with reviews with less than 20 reviews. Because if a business has less than 20 reviews, it means they're either brand new or they don't really care about exposure online and they just work on referrals and don't really care about growing their business as much as the others. Meaning they're not really our ICP, because we want to find businesses which do really care about their exposure online. And one small important detail I do want to touch upon is when you filter or when you scrape businesses on Google Maps, it usually gives you a very strange URL, like directing to a specific page on a website. And since we want to use the domain to do a reverse search later on, we want to clean all those URLs. As you can see, it came back with Dallas Commercial Roofing Contractors - commercial roofing. We don't want that. We want to filter it for the domain. So dallascommercialroofingcontractors.net. And scrape all the rest, as I said, because we want to do a reverse search, and having those linked to a specific page might mess it all up. Once we've scraped the listings and also have the direct URL, we just upload it to our CRM. As I said, I'm using Airtable, so we upload the company name, their location, which should match our search, the category Google gives it, and then the company website we just cleaned. That is the first part of this lead scraping workflow. But as you should understand by now, all we then have is a bunch of businesses with the location, the category, and the website. We don't have the emails of the business, let alone of the founders or the owners or the decision makers at the company. We don't have any information about the decision makers at the company. So that is the next task, because if you want to personalize an email or want to outreach to them, let alone personalize, we need to fill in all of those gaps to create a comprehensive picture with all the contact information we could ever need. And we simply do that by clicking on Start Lead Generation here, which kicks off the second part of the workflow I'll walk you through right now. So as I just said, we want to do a reverse search for the business. We do the reverse search on Apollo. We use the domain name to do the reverse search. As you can see, New View Roofing, which matches the one I just entered. There you go. And then it comes back, in this case, with a business founded in 2013. It has 18 employees, so it must have a few decision makers for us to reach out to. Once the business is found, we can move on. First thing we do is we scrape the company LinkedIn. This is just to check if the company size, meaning the headcount of the company, the number of employees, matches our ICP. If it's less than 5, it's probably not relevant for our offer. Once again, they probably don't have the budget for us. If it's more than 100, I'm pretty sure they already have an in-house SEO team or an agency they're working with, and that's just harder to have competition with. So that's just a check. This is a bit of a qualification. You could leave this out if you wanted to. It's something I always include, and this is just one of the things I check for normally. Once I have the business found on Apollo, and I know they have some employees and they also match the range of employees that I want to look for, I do a search for all of the employees. Well, that's not, in this case, not particularly true. I do a search for a particular employee, which, as you can see here, is just a person who matches any of these job titles: Director of Sales, VP of Sales, or Head of Sales. Titles is true. And also the seniority levels, even the location should be a match. The thing is, you don't have to do all of this if you don't want to. You could just remove everything above the per page up until the organization's domains list, and then it would just find all of the 18 employees that Apollo has on record for this company. Because but this is just a template that I like using, and I like to show you guys what the possibilities are. But let's say we didn't do this and we just had all of the 18 employees that were found from our initial Apollo scrape. As you can see, the 18 employees Apollo has on record. We would then split the 18 employees we found, and we'd score them based on the following things. So things like job title, department, etc., etc. And they would get a score. As you can see, this one person that we found did get a score 39 because it already matches the criteria of a decision maker, as you can see by our filters. If we would have all 18 of them would get a score, and then the top 5 highest ranked, most likely decision makers will be picked out by this line of code. As I said, or as you can see, we only have one because only one of these 18 employees matched our filters. And that is the only person in this case we do enrich the email for and then upload to our CRM, which would then look the following. As you can see, James C, the person we found, we have their email address, we have their title, which was Senior Vice President of Sales, I believe, the company, the location, their personal LinkedIn URL, their company LinkedIn URL, and the company website, ready for us to personalize and move on. So that is the first layer of the system, pulling real businesses straight from Google Maps and turning them into structured data your system can actually use. The point isn't scraping faster, it's scraping right. Once the data is flowing automatically, the foundation is set, but clean data alone doesn't drive replies, context does. The next step is taking those raw records and turning them into something usable, real insights, real personalization, real relevance. Now that we've scraped and uploaded all those local business listings, the next step is to make that data usable, because just having company names and websites doesn't get you booked calls. What matters is what you do with that data. At the end of this workflow, you see 2 email templates pinned, the ones we actually used in the campaign. Each variable inside those templates, like business type, location, competitor, and creative ideas, has to come from real data. AI can't guess those fields. It can only generate relevant lines if we give it structured context first. And that's what this workflow is built to do. It automatically collects all the data we needed to fill those fields. Once all that context is gathered, the AI nodes take over and start generating relevant insights that plug straight into the email template. That's why the final email feels handwritten. The logic behind this is simple. AI is supposed to be creative. It's supposed to assemble intelligence at scale. You give it structured inputs, it returns personalized outputs consistently, accurately, and fast. Now, how does this workflow give us the outputs that we're looking for? It all starts in our CRM once again. In this case, we would just click the start lead generation or start lead enrichment, which would then kick off this workflow. We do another scrape. I see this is a bit of a duplicated step. It doesn't really matter. We first do the email validation, checking if the email address we found for the employee is actually valid. If it isn't, our email would most likely bounce, hurting our sending deliverability. Then we check if the company is actually in the US, yes or no. If you're scraping Google Maps, not as necessary as in this case, but I just left it in because it's a free check. Then we scrape the company LinkedIn again, in this case to analyze some variables. Well, the only variable I analyzed was the headcount. Because I'm already doing this in the lead generation step, this could be completely left out. The only thing is we have to scrape the company LinkedIn either way, because we're analyzing the company LinkedIn using an LLM. So having this in from my template doesn't really hurt me or hurt the process in any way in this case. With the company LinkedIn analyzed, meaning we've let the AI or given the AI all of the input from the company LinkedIn, and it gave us a bit of a report back with all the interesting information, the about page, location, the number of employees, you name it. We move on to the personal LinkedIn profile we found of this employee. We scrape that one, same thing. We look for their about page or their about section. We look for their work experience. We look for their education, maybe all of the information that you can find on a personal LinkedIn page. Why do you want to scrape someone's personal LinkedIn? Well, I think it is probably the best source to look for variables you can use for personalizing the email to a specific lead. Why do you want to personalize the email, or why do you want to personalize the opener of the email? Is to make it seem like you're not just a human, or a robot sending out thousands of emails a day, even though in fact you are one. The thing is just you want to set yourself apart from your competition who is just sending templates, by making it seem like you actually hand wrote your one, increasing your chances of getting a reply back. With the company LinkedIn and the personal LinkedIn scraped, we move on to the homepage of the company. We scrape all of the HTML, which returns us a bunch of code, as you can see, along with the plain text. That's why we use a code node to filter out all of the code. You can see New View Roofing, 5-star Dallas roofing contractors, and a bunch of text that they have on the homepage. The more interesting thing we do is, because most lead generation businesses ended here. They scrape the homepage and just hope that there's enough information for them to use to personalize the email. I go a step further and I also look for all of the internal links that are mentioned or are available on the homepage. I take the HTML I scraped here and I filter it for all of the URLs, which in return gave us 265, if I can read it correctly, 265 results of pages or links that the website or the homepage refers to. We turn it into one item and give that one item as input to the LLM, which then for 4 categories finds in its opinion, the best match for the best matching page for the category. So it would be company mission, offerings, positioning, process differentiation, and proof of success. So for the company mission, the About Us page makes sense. Offerings and positioning is the services page. Process differentiation is roof repair, assuming they mention something about their roof repair process, which might be different from others. And then the proof of success is About Us testimonials, which once again is the page you want to scrape. Why would you want to scrape these 4 pages separately from the homepage? Because 99% of the time they include more in-depth, more detailed information of how the business goes about things. And that is the information you need to actually take your cold outreach to the next level and personalize it in a way that it makes it seem like you actually read through the entire website to send them an email that actually makes sense or links to what they say on their website. And the thing for the proof of success, so the testimonials page we scraped, is more so if they have a case study on it, maybe not as relevant for roofers, but might be very relevant for web designers or SEO agencies or CRO specialists. It is very interesting or relevant to say, hey, I found or I read your case study report about X company. Amazing how you've helped them achieve Y. We can get you into contact with more lookalike companies like X. You see how that immediately makes the email a lot more relevant than just saying, hey, I saw your website. Seems like you're doing Y. Are you interested in getting more leads? So with the company LinkedIn scraped, the personal LinkedIn scraped, the homepage plus 4 most relevant pages, we have a very comprehensive database, or we have a lot of information about the company and about the lead that we can now use as input for the LLM to help us fill in the email template we've pre-written before making this workflow and make it as personalized as we possibly can. So every email template I write has different types of personalization. There are some ones or some things that I use more often than others because they seem to have worked in the past. One of the things I do is I like to mention a competitor. So let's see what competitor it came up with. It came with Tecta America. I actually know this is a very big roofing company. Maybe not the most specific answer, but if I would redo this again, it would probably come up with a more Dallas-based or Texas-based roofing company that they might also know very well. I'm pretty sure that if you're in roofing and in the US, you are familiar with Tecta. Then for the opening line, so found your business while searching for business type in location. The AI came up with found your business while searching for roofing companies in Dallas. Because we are only scraping for roofing companies, this is a very easy line to fill in. But once again, if you think about marketing agencies or if you think about recruitment agencies or lawyer firms that might be specialized in certain things, the business type would be a bit more specific or a lot more specific, depending on the type of business they actually are. Also immediately personalizing your outreach. Then in the second email template, the only variable I use is creative ideas. You might be wondering, what does creative ideas actually mean? Well, the offer is about paid ads, pay-per-click ads, and SEO. So I want 3 creative ideas which are directly tied to the company, in this case, a roofing business. So let me read through what the AI came up with. So the first idea, so I always have 3 ideas showing my expertise, my authority, or in this case, my client's authority and my client's expertise. Run local search campaigns featuring ad headlines like free roof inspection within 24 hours, trusted veteran roofing team to capture urgent leads for homeowners experiencing storm damage. The other one is use custom intent targeting to reach commercial property managers searching for industrial roof repairs in Dallas and direct them to a dedicated landing page highlighting commercial and industrial expertise. And the last one is test ad extensions such as callouts to GF Master Elite Certified and family-owned 25 plus years experience to build trust and increase click-through on competitive roofing keywords. Personally, I've been in the ad space, in the Google ad space for a while, and these are actually some pretty good, interesting recommendations that we can send in our outreach, which would most likely raise some eyebrows with the reader, meaning they would be interested in talking to us and having a chat about how we could help them implement any of these strategies. It should be quite apparent now that this workflow makes sure every lead receives a personalized message that actually lands because the data comes from the right sources. That's the biggest reason behind the high reply rates we're getting. We're not mass blasting anyone we can find. We're sending emails that feel one-to-one and handwritten, even though the entire process runs automatically from beginning to end. But data alone doesn't book meetings, words do. Even with perfect personalization, the message still has to hit the right nerve. So let's look at the copy that actually made this campaign work and why every line was written the way it was. So email 1 opens with contextual personalization. Found your business while searching for business type in location. AI pulls the business type from the data we scraped and the location comes straight from Google Maps. Even though it's a small detail, that line instantly makes the email feel handwritten, like it was meant for one specific person, not mass sent. The next line adds relevance through contrast. I noticed the companies like competitor, so in this case Tecta, are starting to take over local search. Almost every business owner wonders what their competitors are doing. Mentioning one by name makes the email personal, but it also hooks their attention because it touches something they already care about. Then comes the offer line. We help businesses protect and expand their digital real estate. Notice how we're not saying we run Google Ads. Nobody cares about that. What they care about is not losing ground to the competition. That's why the phrasing is intentional. It's about protection and growth, not about services. And to closer, worth a quick chat about how this could look for a company. By this point, the goal isn't to sell, it's just to start a conversation. If the copy did its job, we've just built enough curiosity for them to want to hear how they can get ahead again. Email 2 builds on that momentum. It opens with what's back on company site today. It doesn't have to be their site. The point is to create a natural reason to reach back out instead of saying just following up. Then we shift into authority. I mapped out a few campaign ideas, and this is where the creative idea field comes in, the bridge between AI and human logic. Using the data we scraped, the AI generates short relevant suggestions that show we actually understand their business. Because remember, it is cold email. They don't know who you are or if you're even worth talking to. So instead of pitching, we show value through ideas we could use immediately or they could use immediately. Next, we add a safety net. Of course, I made these assumptions without knowing your current setup. That line serves two purposes. First, it protects us if the AI made any wrong guesses. And second, it plants curiosity. If these insights came without speaking to them, they start wondering what we could do if we actually talked. And then the closer is simply worth a chat, brings it full circle. Now the invitation feels earned. We've given them something useful first, so the ask feels natural, not forced. If you look closely, both emails follow the same simple structure: relevance, value, conversation. That's all cold email really is. The difference is that here, every variable comes from data, so the message feels personal, even though it's automated. So to bring this all together, what you've just seen is the full system that produced 50 boot calls in just 30 days. It started with the offer, because nothing else matters if the foundation is wrong. We built it as front-end, demand generation offer tied directly to revenue. Not just saying better ads, but more paying customers. And that's what made it work for cold email. Then came the sourcing, where we pulled verified local businesses straight from Google Maps. The goal wasn't to scrape faster, it was to scrape right. Every record came from the same ecosystem those businesses live in, which meant clean, relevant data from day one. Next was the enrichment, where automation turned those listings into complete lead profiles. That's where AI stepped in, finding decision makers, scanning sites, and generating insights that made every message sound personal without needing to write them by hand. And finally, the copy, where all that data came together into short emails that followed the same simple structure: relevance, value, conversation. Because no matter how advanced your workflow gets, cold email still comes down to one thing: sending the right message to the right person at the right time. So when you look at this system as a whole, it's one engine. An offer that converts, data that aligns, automation that scales, and copy that connects. That's how you turn cold outreach from guesswork into something predictable. Now, if this kind of setup is what you've been trying to figure out, how to actually build a system that gets clients on autopilot, that's literally what I walk you through step by step inside Scaling System Society. You'll learn how to write offers that convert, automate the entire outreach flow, and close those calls once they come in. All the workflows, prompts, and scripts from this video are already inside. hit the link in the description and I'll see you guys inside.